Let's go live with Jack Kelly. Welcome to the one-of-a-kind LinkedIn live show that will help you with your job search and advancing your career. We will bring in educated career experts who will share their insights and give you inside tips on how to be successful in your job search. Now let's get into today's show with your host, Jack Kelly.
I'd like to welcome Claire Spence to Let's Go Live with Jack Kelly. Now, Claire is an awesome, fantastic recruiter, and she's not only a great recruiter, but one of those folks who likes to share her advice and guidance with people. And you don't necessarily have to be a client or somebody who is going through the job search through her firm, but she's part of our We Meet Up group and just gives some great advice to people. So maybe Claire, you could tell a little bit about who you are, what you do as a recruiter, what you specialize in. And the whole idea is that we'll be able to kind of tell people, here's what you need to know how to deal with recruiting, the do's, the don'ts, what works, what doesn't work, how they can help, why maybe you feel sometimes you get blown off, and tips she's learned along the way to help you with your search. So Claire, so this way, maybe you can introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jack. Happy to be here. And my name's Claire Spence. As Jack said, I'm with Joseph Chris Partners. We are a boutique firm that specialize in all sectors of real estate development and construction. So that's pretty much anything you can think of, single family, multifamily, retail, commercial, hospitality, mixed use, industrial, educational facilities. We do mostly director level search and above, but horizontally, vertically, all the way out through operations, presidents, CEOs, and chairmen of the board.
So these would be the executives, not necessarily the people building the house, but executives who run these companies.
It depends. I mean, we have some clients we've been working with for, I have a lot of clients I've been working with for, 18 years. And so those people all do whatever they need me to do.
Yeah.
But for the most part, our firm is focused on director level and above.
Now, is this in Dallas or is it across the board?
No, it's all over the country. The firm is based in Houston, or Kingwood, which is a suburb of Houston, and I don't live there. I did, but I work remotely from my home office, and but we work nationally as well as globally. So, but most of it's in country.
It's so interesting though, because from what I'm seeing, and I don't know if I'm right about this, but despite the fact of a pandemic and so many people out of work and all that, that real estate in some parts is still doing pretty well, right? Like people are still buying houses.
It is. I mean, right now, especially in the single family sector, I mean, even in California, and places that have a lot more restrictions than, say, Texas or Florida. All over the country, single family is very, very strong.
Now, why is that? Like, how come? Because you would think to me, like, it's almost counterintuitive. Like, you would think, okay, people are going to hang tight and not buy a house because they're worried about the economy and everything.
Well, rates are low.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people working from home, looking online at homes. I don't know. I think really it's probably has more to do with the rates being as low as they have been. I mean, I think the average is like 3% and under right now on a mortgage.
So it's almost like, hey, if you're thinking about doing it, you're like, hey, I might as well do it now. And do you think also it has to do with this whole remote work thing too, where people are feeling, hey, you know what? If I'm going to be working remotely and maybe I'm in an apartment, let me get a house.
Mm-hmm.
And because we have myself, my spouse, the kids, the dogs, the cats,
right.
We're all, on top of each other. Let's get a house and, have more room. Is that
exactly? I think that has it has a lot to do with it. That and the rates being low, a lot of people can, especially families that are in an apartment or in a 3-bedroom apartment or something, can get a home for less than what they're paying for their apartment right now.
And Texas, everyone seems to be moving there. right?
Well,
Elon
it
Musk
seems
is
like
moving there.
everybody from California is coming to Texas, and
They
everybody
are.
from New York is going to Florida.
Yeah, it's wild. So what? You got Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Wait,
Ben's in
Lewis
Florida.
Pasteur. Huh?
Ben's in Florida.
Oh, he really? Oh, okay.
Ben went to
But
Florida.
it's so wild. It's like it's wild. Like things are changing so much.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre. So as a recruiter, I think a lot of people don't understand how they work, and what I hear a lot, and you probably hear this too, is they have a bad taste in their mouth. They think, I get blown off by these recruiters, they ghost me. Maybe you could kind of tell a little bit about like just how the whole thing works.
Well, I certainly believe that there are recruiters out there. I hate being called a headhunter. Someone says, "Oh, you're a headhunter." I'm like, "No, I've never hunted heads in my life."
That sounds kind of badass though, right? Doesn't it?
Right?
Does.
I'm an executive recruiter,
Yeah.
but there are firms out there that throw a lot of paper just to see what sticks. We're not one of those. Um, Things are confidential until a candidate decides that they really want to talk. Even at that point, everything stays confidential. And we spend a lot of time with individuals prior to submitting them to a search. I may talk to 100 people before I submit one.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And you talk to so you talk to a lot of people then.
Yeah, we're on the phone all day, all day long. So
that's pretty cool. So, but if you're talking to all those folks, is that because you feel they're good for it, or maybe they're not good for the job you're recruiting for, but you want to get to know them for the future?
All of the above, but at the same, but for the most part, I want to get my client the best possible fit. I mean, for me, it's not about making a placement. It's about making a lasting relationship a win-win relationship that's going to last forever. So I want whoever I'm going to place to be there forever. I've put a stop on, there have been plenty of times when I've said to my client after I submitted someone, "Hey, no, let's go back on that. I don't want you to hire this person. I don't trust them anymore, or I have this feeling, and I've made clients sign things when they wanted to hire them anyway and say, "Okay, your guarantee, I'm letting your guarantee go." And sure enough,
it's interesting you say that, because you know what? I've had that same kind of experience at times where you just get this bad vibe from somebody, and you can make a placement. And for the people watching, if you're an executive recruiter, and Claire's going to get mad at me, and my recruiter friends are all going to get mad at me because I'm going to spill some beans here, or spill the tea, or whatever what you young kids talk about now. So what happens is this: you get a nice commission. It can be 20, 25%, 30% of the base salary, or sometimes the whole compensation package. So there's a big incentive for a recruiter to make a placement, because not only do they place someone and you feel good about it, but, financially it's cool. So that if you kind of walk away from it, you're taking a big hit. So I know what you're saying, because there are times I was in the same boat where I'm like, I just don't get a good vibe. And you risk, and you say, all right, yeah, I'm going to walk away from a placement fee, but I don't want someone to go in there and it's just going to be a disaster, and my reputation will blow up, and it's not worth it.
No, it's not. Integrity is everything. And if you're going to be in this for the long haul, then your reputation is, your name is everything. So I'd rather walk away from a placement and than sully my reputation.
I've actually had it, Claire, where I would say to them, I don't really feel comfortable about someone because such and such and such, because like there's one person who kind of fibbed about something in his background, and just how like it's okay if you fib, but you say, well, no, when you come up, but it's like just so blatant. And I'm like, all right, what other things?
Right.
And the company was like, no, that's okay, because it was such a hot market that they just looked the other way, because they figured, hey, we need to get somebody. We'll just pretend that never happened, which is really odd.
Yeah, if that happens to me, I will have the client sign something stating, Claire told me this, and my replacement guarantee is null and void if this person leaves before da 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 da.
Yeah.
and that's happened, and they're like, I'm so sorry, I should have listened to you.
So
So
how would someone get on your radar? So if you want, let's say someone wanted to use your services, they're looking for a new job, maybe they're in between work or they want to get a better job. Like what would make them attractive so that you would either notice them on LinkedIn or if they want to contact you directly, what they should say or do?
um so I mean, we've been around for 43 years, so a lot of, in our niches anyway, our niches, um, a lot of the presidents and CEOs we've taken throughout their careers. So
Wow.
we have a huge database with, you know, we have more than one, I think. Sometimes I have to go, hey, to our IT guy and say, can you go back to the old one? I'm looking for somebody from way back when.
Yeah.
But we have so many of those contacts in our RATS. And then, so everything we do, for the most part, other than posting, most of our searches are confidential. And if we post something, we'll post it on our website. But you won't be able to really tell a whole lot other than, you won't be able to tell who it is.
Mhm.
And we'll post hot jobs on LinkedIn. I think people may see those things, and that's the company posting everybody's jobs on each of our LinkedIn pages. But everything that we do is basically word of mouth. I mean, we're calling people that we know in the industry and asking for referrals, um, speaking to individuals that we know are at certain companies. But as far as LinkedIn goes, I mean, well, obviously we have LinkedIn Recruiter. I don't know how many regular folks out there know about that, but it's there.
So what so this is like, I think, a dilemma for people then too. So I can see you have accumulated from over the years this big network of people. So you could go into your database and say, oh, hey, here's Jack Kelly. We helped place him years ago, or he's a hiring manager. Let me contact him for this job. But what if they're not there, but they know you, they know your company and want to get on your radar? Well, what would you suggest they do?
Well, they'll either find me through LinkedIn. I mean, it's
Okay.
just like during the downturn when people
Right.
left our industries and went outside, and then we had to go and find them. We found them through LinkedIn, because we knew their name and we knew what their background was already, right? Um, I mean, our website, our social media, we have a pretty big social media presence, not only on Facebook, but on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on Instagram, on YouTube.
So they'll come to you. So they may see it, and they're like, what would be something where they should say? Like, let's say I see you on LinkedIn, and I see one of your job postings, and I want to get a hold of you. Are there like some things that you suggest I would say to really make my as a candidate make myself stand out, and things I shouldn't say or do?
To be honest,
Uh-huh.
um, I mean, I need, I mean, I will pull honesty out of people as hard as I will try as hard as I can to get people to relax and be honest with me, because, um, if you can tell after almost 19 years, and you know this, Jack, it's so funny because we do so much over the phone, and it's like our ears are tuned in to if somebody's telling the truth or not. I mean, I can tell when somebody's. It's just this feeling you get. I can tell when somebody's kind of not telling me the truth.
So
But
you want to be authentic. You want to like, so if I'm a job seeker and there's a role for like a senior VP and I'm like an associate level and I'm trying to pretend like, oh yeah, I could do this, senior VP role.
right.
It's like, you're like, Jack, I could help you, but come
I
on.
know
Yeah.
that, and I do that all. I mean, I talk to people. There's been a lot of people that have contacted me just since you and I have met, that are not necessarily in the industries that we work in. Some could be, some want to pivot. And I've been helping people with that as well. But I mean, I talk with people all the time about, if they think they're a good fit for like you said, an SVP search, and they're really at an associate level. I'll talk to them more about, I mean, we'll go through all of that, and
You'll be cool
I'm
with it.
just as honest on the other end.
You'll be
So
cool about you know, you're not going to lead them on and say, oh yeah, this could work when you don't know,
oh
because
no,
talk to them and see, okay, this role right now might not be the perfect fit,
right.
but you know, I'll keep you in mind for other things if you feel that person has the skills, the background, and all that kind of good stuff.
Absolutely, because you know, not doing anything else isn't helping anyone. It's not helping them. It's not helping me. It's not, you know, I want to be as helpful as I can, and I want to be as honest as I can. But if somebody's not a fit, they're not a fit, and that doesn't mean that there's not something else around the corner tomorrow or next week or next month that you know they would be a fit for. But I would definitely, you know, talk to them about their experience and get to know them as a person,
Yeah.
and
Well, that's good.
what makes them tick.
See, that's good that you do that, because I think the knock on recruiters is that they don't do it. And so I got quite, I don't know if this was a question or more of a statement. So William Hodge was saying something to the effect of, candidates need to know recruiters are primarily working for their client firms and not necessarily them, which I think, William, that's a good point, because therein lies, I think, issues why there's a disconnect between job seekers and recruiters, and there gets frustration, because when the way it works is, a company will call up Claire or myself and say, hey, we have this job order, here's what we're looking for, here's a comp, so on and so on. And they're the ones who are going to pay us. So even though I view, and I'm curious how you view yourself, like I view myself almost like a matchmaker. So then I have to find the person who fits the bill and would make, you know, and work well with the company. And the company has to be the right fit for that person and try to put them all together. But at the end of the day, the company's paying for it.
Right.
But then also, if you don't have the candidate, nothing's going to happen. So I look at it, you have to, even though one pays and the other doesn't, you need the two to put together, because if you don't, it's just not going to happen.
There's a fine balance, and I think it's really important to care about your candidates. I mean, 99% of my candidates or my clients were my candidates at one point, and
That's a good sign.
and yes,
That's
it
really
is,
cool when that
and
happens.
I think that comes simply from, you know, really getting to know somebody, not forgetting about them, keeping in touch with them. I mean, so many of them, I know the spouses, I know the kids' names, and I've got pictures of kids and dogs on my refrigerator, from candidates that I've had for years.
You think that's because you're kind of in the Southwest and it's very different than New York, which is much more.
It could be. I don't know. I'm just being me.
Yeah. It's like, because I don't, I notice, it's so funny. Recruiting, there's such a difference I noticed between people who like live in New York and New Jersey and Boston compared to someone who's, in Florida or Texas. It's way different. They're much nicer. Like I kind of love when I work on assignments outside of New York, because people are so much friendlier and they're nicer and they're not as mean.
Well,
And it's a difference. And I think maybe that's why the recruiters are, the New York ones, and I'll speak for myself too, sometimes it can be just kind of just, harsh, sometimes a little rude.
it's hard for me to imagine you being that way, but if you're saying so.
Yeah, I try not to. I try. But William, you're right. It does factor in, and I can see how that leads to frustration, where people may think, okay, just because the client's paying, you're just gonna do whatever. But
some of it may, for me, some of it may stem from the fact that when I very first started at Joseph Chris, we had a different structure. I mean, I'm an executive partner currently. We used to have what we called, which were just recruiters that worked for the partners and just pulled in resumes all day. I mean, I run my entire desk at this point. I used to have, back in the day when, I used to have 3 recruiters, but I think, when I started with the company, I started on that side and learned the business, and I was only dealing with candidates. And so I think when you're in that position versus working with the client, working the full cycle, the full desk, and working with the client as well, you put so much stock into your candidates, right? Because you want your candidates, you want your candidates to be the candidate, right? And so I think that helped. I think that helped me be a better, uh,
It's
work
such a
better
good
with the clients. I mean,
point. Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
such a good point. It's
yeah,
it's such a good point because what happens is this: when you deal, because I was the same way. I would do everything because I like that. I like all the aspects of it. But when you're dealing with the candidates, especially I remember when I first started, right? When I first started, and I would get so involved, and I like be friends and buddies with them. And then when they get a job, I'd be kind of sad because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be dealing with them for a while. Did you go? Do you ever go through that? It's like, oh man, we've been talking like every day for several months, and now goodbye
yeah.
because you build up that
Well,
relationship.
but it's not, but I don't ever let it be goodbye. I mean,
Yeah,
I keep in touch,
yeah,
Hey, happy first month anniversary, happy
yeah.
90-day anniversary, happy 6 months, happy 1 year, happy 8 years. I just did an 8 year one the other day. And they're like,
That's
what? 8 years? I'm like,
Isn't that a
huh?
good feeling when you see that? Like someone is like you place and 8 years later, maybe they started out at like the ground level and now they're up here and you're like, wow, I made
Yeah.
such a difference and I helped this person get there.
Yep. I remember when I became a partner, the day I became a partner, I had been, I had been talking to someone up in the Pacific Northwest who I had been trying to recruit, and I thought he was their VP of construction. He was actually the president and one of the owners of the company,
Mhm.
and we got to be friends. And then the day I became a partner, I received three retainers from him for 3 searches.
Wow, nice.
And when I went up a couple of years ago to visit them, and I visit them pretty regularly, but I went up a couple of years ago to visit them, and we went from Bend, Oregon, over to Boise, Idaho, for a regional meeting. And the person who at the time was running their Boise or their Idaho region, I had placed him when he was barely 18 years old,
Wow.
and I had placed him as an assistant project manager, and he was their regional director, which is like a regional president for that
That's amazing.
region. And he was he was turning 30 that week. And when I walked in, he's like, Claire, and I'm like, Ryan. And then the CEO goes, so how did you two meet anyway? And Ryan looks at me and he goes, I don't know. I was just up on the roof hammering in some shingles and my cell phone rang and it was Claire. And I was
So
like, Dennis looked at me and I was like, I'm sorry, the CEO looked at me and I was like, I really don't remember. That was a long time ago. So,
that is remarkable. So like he
yeah.
starts out as working on the roof and now he's a regional president. That's amazing.
Yep.
That's cool. See, that's what I think maybe sometimes we as a kind of a sector don't promote this enough, that there's such, like you can tell like in her voice, there's such joy when you can play someone and make a difference in their life. It's,
Yes. Well,
it's
that's what it's
really great.
about. That's what it's about. I mean, you're moving people across the families across the country. To me, if I'm going to move a family across the country, it better be for a darn good reason, and I want it to be a happy thing and a forever thing. And I want everybody to be happy,
Because
kids
think
and
about
the dogs, everyone.
it. Like let's take that person for example. Let's just make up numbers. So he's a young fella, and maybe he's making 20,000 a year. And fast forward 8 years, maybe he's making 200,000 a year. Think
Oh,
about
he's making more than that.
think about the life, just the life, how different it is.
Yeah.
But for the fact of maybe you being there at the right time and him being at the right time and getting that and going where he is, makes all the difference between having, maybe having more kids, a bigger house, being able to travel, maybe
Absolutely.
you pay for their college. I mean, it really is, it's a really cool thing. And that's what's so frustrating, I think, about our profession is that we really don't talk about these things. And all you do is we talk about like, oh, I got blown off, I got ghosted, I didn't get feedback. But I don't think, and that's why I want to bring you on and just bring on other recruiters too, to talk about this stuff, because this way I think job seekers should get a better perspective and not just, because like they're going to hear you and think, okay, I thought all recruiters could be these like sharks that just don't care. And clearly Claire cares. So, it shows a different perspective than the narrative that's out there.
It does. And I don't know how not to care. I mean, it's my nature, but um it's made all the it's what gives me the joy in what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I am changing people's lives. I am trying to make people's lives better. Um, it's important to me not to work with clients that I wouldn't move to go work for. If they're not a company I would want to work for, why would I want to send somebody else over there? So, I factor all of those things in on both ends. So
Now, when you
I'm
hear that,
definitely not in it just for the placement.
yeah, you hear a lot of people say like, oh, the whole, interview process is broken, recruiting is broken, not just recruiting, but just the whole recruiting process, the whole interview process. How is it after like almost 20 years, from when you started to now? Are you seeing there's just more kind of challenges in terms of getting things done, or what do
You
you think?
know, I social media has made things easier on one hand and more difficult on another, right?
Mhm.
Um, there are so many more things to keep up with. Um, Millennials don't like to talk on the phone.
See,
How do you really get to know somebody if you can't have a
that's a big
conversation with
thing.
them?
That's a
They
big
like to
thing.
text and email. They don't like to talk on the phone. And I understand that. Um, but I mean, for me, at some point, if I can't, I'm going to have to talk to them on the phone. I have to get to know who they are. I have to hear them.
Because how can you know somebody through text? It's impossible. Through
You
email,
can't.
it's just impossible.
No, and you can't even, there's no inflection in
Yeah.
email. How many times emails and texts are misinterpreted by the person on the other end. It happens
You
all the
said
time.
something that I can't agree more with you. That when you're on the phone after all these years, I think I could kind of be a better judge by the phone sometimes than actually seeing the person in person. Because then I get, how they talk about unconscious bias, this and that. But I think when you're on the phone, you're just listening so intently that you're just really absorbing everything without like looking to see what they look like and how they are.
Right. And it's because we've done it for so long,
Yeah.
Jack. Our I don't know, it's like spidey sense in the ears.
It's so interesting how you could just pick it up, like every little nuance in terms of what they say, what they do, what they don't say. And
Right?
it's like, like you got a computer in your mind going and weighing and calculating all the odds. Okay, is this going to work for this person or not because of all these different things?
Exactly.
And what would you
That's
say, like
exactly.
when you meet with these people and talk to these people, are there certain things that they do that you feel, and then also in the interview process that you cringe, you go, oh my God, why would they do this? This is such a bad thing to do. And other times like, hey, they do such and such, you're like, oh my God, that's really, they should keep doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on the position and what type of person I'm talking to.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, you can tell when you're dealing with somebody that's sleazy if you're talking to somebody that's just kind of, you know, cringeworthy. Um, it's pretty easy to hear in their voice. But as far as what I'm looking for or listening for is honesty and authenticity and someone that genuinely cares, genuinely is wanting to improve their life, the life of their family, their career, and whether it's taking their next step or I mean I spent some time on the phone with an individual the other day that wants to switch industries, and he's in one of our industries, but he wants to get into a different one that's completely different. And what a wonderful young man. And I just thought, gosh, and I gave him all kinds of tips on how I thought he should go about doing it. And none of them were going to include me. But
See,
that's okay because he's not going to forget who I am.
well, that's really good that you do that, because a lot of people don't. And that's awesome you do that, to spend the time and energy. And
What pays off later? Everything comes around.
you know what I find that's a challenge? I don't know if you see this too. And this is what puts recruiters in the crosshairs. As William Hodge asked that question about, or statement about, hey, who pays your bills? So that's who you might be beholden to. But there's a lot of validity to that, in that a company will say, hey, Claire, here's what we need. And give a list of 10, 20 different things that they have to do. And then you get, a candidate, and the candidate has 4 or 5, but they're awesome and they're brilliant. But then like, even though they want to kind of go into it, they don't have it. And you know the client's just going to give you grief because you can say, no, Claire, I wanted to have all this. So it creates this kind of friction.
Well, and if they have, 3 out of 5 things, then you have that conversation with your client anyway. Especially if there's that extra thing inside
You find that they're
of
open
them.
when you do you find that your clients are open with that they only have like 3 or 4
Some are very open, and
Yeah.
some aren't. I have some clients that are like, I don't care if if we're looking for anything or not. If you know our culture inside and out, and if you
Yeah.
find somebody anywhere that's a fit for our culture, we want to know who they are and we want to talk to them.
See, it's so interesting. Now, I don't know if it's a regional thing or maybe an industry because I focus more on Wall Street, the Wall Street hedge funds, private equity, those kind of things. And there's really not an appetite to say, okay, hey, your candidate, let's make went to like a top university, great grade, smart, great background, but they don't have all the stuff. They'll be like, nah, let's keep looking.
Yeah.
Seriously, and it's and like you want to say, wait, look, this person, I'm a Yale graduate, an MBA from Stanford, and come on, obviously they're smart.
Went to MIT.
but we really want someone who's been doing this for X amount of years and doing this, and and then what ends up happening, I think that frustrates job seekers because they're thinking, hey, I can do it if you give me a shot. Why don't you give me a shot?
I know.
And being the middleman, you
have to handle it with care.
Yeah.
Love and care. And just because one thing doesn't work out doesn't mean there's not something else that's next that will. And that's what people need to understand. I know William Hodge said, hey, people need to understand that their clients are the ones that are paying them. But at the same time, like I said, 99% of my clients were at one time my candidates. And if I hadn't taken care of those candidates in the way that I did, they wouldn't be my clients today.
See, and here's a kind of challenge that happens with recruiting, and I kind of given a little inside baseball for people who are watching this. So it might be interesting, others might be like, all right, just tell me how I can get a job. So we'll get to that. I'll find out. Same thing. You place somebody, and now they're looking to leave, but then it's awkward because you don't want to take them out of a place you place them there because usually number one, contracts say you can't for a certain amount of time. Well, ethically, you don't feel cool about it. But then if you don't, then all of a sudden that person hates you. Because
we can't ever. It does. I don't care if it's been 100 years. If we place them there, we can't pull them out ever. So, never ever.
But then sometimes what I find out, if let's say you don't take them out because you don't feel it's the right thing to do, they don't understand it, and then they think you're a bad guy or woman because you're not helping them. And it's like, I'd like to help you, but it's not really an ethical thing to do.
Most people, when I've been in that situation, most people have understood that, there's no integrity in poaching from your client. Most people understand that.
I'm starting to think there's a big gap between Dallas and the Southwest and the Northeast. I think maybe that's why everybody's moving to there because it's nicer. People are nice and people here. And I'm a native New Yorker, so I feel I can say that. I guess maybe it's just different here. It's not as but you hear Southern.
I'd probably get chewed up and spit out on Wall Street, Jack.
Well, let's be honest. You hear Southern hospitality. You ever hear like New York hospitality, right? It's not a thing. So I don't know. It is interesting because just in the brief, like we're talking about here, I see so many differences where it seems from what you're going through, there's much more accommodation, on all sides of it. And again, it could be the industries that I know best. That's just really, hey, here's what we want. This is what you got to do. And if you don't do it, sorry, next.
I think it may be. Well, I think it may be because you're Wall Street, right? And the rest of the world's not. I don't know.
I guess they're nicer. so it all flows together.
I don't know. I think you're wonderful. So I've never.
I'm
nice.
I'm really horrible.
Yeah.
This is terrible.
Years ago, before I got into this industry, I was in the medical field for psychiatric field actually for like 10 years, and I just remember one patient calling in, and he was a New Yorker, and I was almost in tears when I got off the phone with him because he was so rude. And then once he came in and we met and we ended up, talking for a while, he was like I was his new best friend, So go
That
figure.
is a
I
thing.
just didn't know how to handle it. I just didn't know how to handle him on the phone.
That's not uncommon here, where you could just be this, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 minutes later, you're like, oh, hey, what'd you think of that, Giant game? It's it's a little bit more socially acceptable to be like that. I don't know. I'm completely generalizing, but that's what it is.
No.
So basically, if somebody wants to approach you, or you would suggest to other recruiters, get in front of other recruiters, is big thing. It sounds like Claire, you're saying, is be authentic and be real and be yourself, so that the recruiter kind of gets a sense, okay, this is who you are. And if you're good for the job, and I guess from Claire and I talking, it may be very different, depends on the industry you're in. That some might be much more open-minded and say, okay, you only have 3 of the 10 ingredients, we'll give you a shot. Others may not. So that could also be why it's so challenging for job seekers, because it's not one consistent thing across the board. It could change geography, sector, type of companies, so that I could see why job seekers could feel like skin of flesh, like what's going on? Why, a buddy of mine got this great job and they only had 3 out of the 10. I have like 9 out of 10. I'm not getting it. Maybe that's one of the reasons.
And if we're talking about or talking about people that do have LinkedIn accounts and are active job seekers, I mean, there are certainly multiple things that they can do to their profile to get them noticed by CEOs, hiring managers, HR, recruiters, that don't cost them a thing. There are I think a free account now. I'm grandfathered in because I've been on LinkedIn for so long, so I have more. But a free account on LinkedIn, I think you can be in up to 50 groups. So if someone was to, this is what I tell people all the time. I'm like, okay, so what you need to do is you need to take a piece of paper on a Saturday and search the groups on LinkedIn and write down all the groups that have anything and everything. I don't care if there's 300 of them, anything and everything to do with what you do and what you want to do, right? And then and write down how many members are in that group, and then go back through and pick the 50 that have the most members in them. Because as soon as you get in that group, then all of a sudden, everybody else that's in that group with you, it doesn't matter for your first, second, or third connection. You can send them emails back and forth. You can chat with them constantly. When LinkedIn is the #1 business networking tool in the world. And so all the CEOs are on it, all the heads of HR are on it, all the recruiters are on it. And when somebody does a keyword search, be sure you've got all the right keywords on your profile. Be sure your picture's professional. But when somebody does a keyword search and you happen to be in that group with them, because what a lot of groups have over 500,000, 1 million members in them, and anytime they do a search, you're going to come up in their search, whereas before you wouldn't have if you wouldn't have been in that group. And you can change those groups on a regular basis. You can switch them out. So that's something that I tell job seekers all the time is to be sure that you've got those 50 groups, that you've got the largest of those 50 groups, because that gives you access to, and people access to you that wasn't there before, going both ways.
Now, what about you started talking also about the profile. What would you suggest for people to do for their profile?
Be sure that they've got the right keywords in there, the right skills. And I would always suggest having at least 3 to 5 written recommendations, not just those little endorsement things that people can do, but actual written recommendations. You can, there's somewhere on there, and LinkedIn's changed here recently, so I'm exactly where I would need to go find it, but somewhere on your profile, there is a way to send an invitation to somebody you're connected with that, say, you used to work with or whatnot, or maybe even that you currently do. And and ask them to write a recommendation for you, and that you'll write one for them in return, and it's that easy. And then it's right there on your profile for people to see. I know that a lot of companies, a lot of really large companies, will only hire off of LinkedIn and will only look at candidates that have a certain number of written recommendations on their LinkedIn profiles. And so I think it's important to have that on there.
Yeah,
It's an easy thing to do.
it is. And what I notice from a recruiting standpoint that gets frustrating is, let's say you're conducting a search, whatever it may be, and you look at the profile and it's so bare bones that you're like, kind of looks like they do it, but I'm not sure. And then it just becomes easy to move on and just say, you know what, I can't sit here and just try to decipher are you exactly a fit or not. I'll go on to the next one. So I think they sell themselves short by not having a fully fleshed out profile that just jumps and say, hey, here's what I do. And so anybody, even if it's not a recruiter, just any random person looks at your profile and say, oh, I get what you do. Okay.
Right. And if somebody's currently employed, they don't have to, they obviously, don't have to put that they're open to work or anything like that. But they definitely don't want to put it to where people can't send them an email. If they really are, if they really do want to look at something else. I've come across that, I don't know, 4 or 5 different times yesterday where I was trying to send somebody an email and I couldn't because this person does not accept emails, and I'm thinking, well, that's silly,
That's another thing people do, which is so bizarre. Whether on the resume you have, or LinkedIn, you have a phone number and you forgot to change it because you moved jobs, or you just changed your phone number, or your email address, you changed your email and you didn't update it. So, you try to get a hold of the person and you call them and the phone's disconnected because they forgot to change it. It's like, sometimes it's those very simple things.
And at that point, then you try to figure out where they are. If you can figure out where they're working, then you call them at work, right?
Do you ever get this? They call you at work. Why are you calling me at work? Does that happen to you or not?
My favorite one is, oh, hi, honey. Yes, no, I'll be happy to pick that up on my way home. Can I call you back in 15 minutes? I'm in a meeting. I'm like, sure.
So they have to play the part like, oh, this is not a recruiter. I like that. That's so cool.
It happens.
Oh my God. I remember like when I first started and, you have to cold call in and you get the receptionist and you have to somehow find a way to have that receptionist put you through to whoever you want to get through. And it became like a game of what do I say? How do I get through? How do I move forward? When sometimes you get these jaded receptions that know what's really happening.
Oh, I know the first call I ever made, Jack, when they answered the phone, I hung up.
Yeah,
sure.
Of course.
I know I did. And I know I did. And but now it just seems like if you just act like you know who you're calling for, if you're just friendly, and keep a smile on your face, because as I've said in some of your other things, your other Zoom meetings before, you can tell over the phone when somebody's smiling and when they're not. You can hear it in their voice. And I'll just say, hi, is Jack in? And typically they think, oh, well, this person knows him, so yeah, sure, hold on, let me transfer you. Oh, he's in a meeting. Do you want his voicemail? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that'd be great. Or do you want his cell phone? Sure, that'd be wonderful.
It really is. But I think it's going to be, the calls are dying arc. It's like, I don't know about you, but I still have landlines, and every other call, and even on the cell now too, is we're calling about your warranty, or Google doesn't have your address, or it's very rare to get calls anymore, except those robocalls.
I know. I have to keep myself. I'm using my internet, my VoIP phone right now, but I keep my cell phone on do not disturb all day long, because otherwise I'd be fielding between 50 and 100 telemarketing phone calls a day, and it's driving me nuts because I've had this number for like almost 30 years. I'm not going to change it. My cell phone.
Funny. When the phone rings, my kids look at the phone like, what is, like, it's like, what is that? What? I'm not going to answer it. They just assume it's spam.
Yeah.
So, all right, I got a few other questions. I didn't mean to be rude. I'm looking down. I'm just looking at some of the questions that come in. So Megan Schuler, I'm at the age now where I gotta kind of do this. what I'm looking at. Making sure I'm a copywriter in advertising with a very specific niche clientele. I'm struggling with getting recruiters, HR to see the skill set fit first. She's never worked on our product. This is kind of what I was talking about before, where if you don't have that right fit, like what the heck do I? So yeah, what would you say to someone, Megan? Now she's a copywriter, but just generally, okay, you don't have the exact, fit, but to be able to get the attention of a recruiter or an HR person to at least give you a shot.
Well, I actually personally will stop and look up. I will try to find a search firm that specializes in what they do and refer them over to them. I do that all the time.
You know what? That's such a smart thing that I think what happens. Again, this is because there's so much that people don't.
I'll never be able to place a copywriter, right? Ever. Even no matter. I mean, it's just isn't going to happen. But I'll be more than happy to talk to them and about their qualities and their the things
So Megan, what to amplify what Claire's saying is that what ends up happening with recruiters, oftentimes successful recruiters, they end up focusing on one niche or several niches, and that's why they get good, because they know that industry, they know the people, they know the players, they know the companies, they know what works and what doesn't work. And so if you have that right background and the right skills for it, a recruiter who specializes in your area, like in your area, copywriting, then they can help you because they get it, they know it. But if you speak to other recruiters in a different field, they don't know. And recruiters, like anyone else, they have egos. So they don't want to say, like Claire just said, well, I can't. And I would say that too. I put a gun to my head. I wouldn't know how. I wouldn't know anything about it. It'd take me months to figure out who's who in that industry. So that what I would suggest, you need to find, don't just look for a recruiter. You want to really drill down and find who specializes in copywriting. And then I don't even know enough about copywriting to say, like, okay, what are the ancillary things too? But in those, and then just focus on that. And then focus on ones who deal within whether geography you want to go to,
right.
The type of companies, because then it can be more appropriate. A recruiter, like I said, the best, I'm generalizing, but usually the best recruiters are the ones who really know one or two or three areas and know it really well.
Right.
And then the ones to help you. And if it's just a recruiter, they may never place a copywriter. They're not going to know much. And it'll lead to a lot of frustration on your part because you're going to think, hey, they should be able to help me, but they don't. And the truth is, too, is that the recruiters at the end of the day, they don't talk about it too much. It's based on what jobs they currently have. Right. So if they have a lot of jobs that fit for a copywriter, they're going to be glad to help you because it's in their own self-interest, because if they place you, they're going to get a fee. But if they don't have the jobs, there's not much they can do. And so but a lot of them, instead of telling you that, like we're telling you now, they don't say anything and you're left like, what the heck? So yeah, my advice, I think Claire is saying that as well, try to do some homework to find, exactly who they are. And I'm not supposed to do this, so I don't want to self-promote my recruiter that has a recruiter director, but there are places that, directories where you can find the exact kind of recruiters to help you with. So I hope that helps a little bit. And you could hit me or Claire up and we could to talk to you offline, later on, just to maybe brainstorm a little bit, see who you can.
Absolutely.
Now, what else would you find out where, here's another. So, Sarita Das, given how technology has evolved the recruiting process, how do you get around, they say the bots, so I don't know if they mean bots or the ATS. But I guess I'm presuming what they're saying is like, okay, with so much technology, how do you make sure you don't get lost?
I mean, when I think of bots, I think of like, there's bots on Twitter.
Yes. So I think
bots
he probably means
Facebook.
like a system kind of thing where, people say, hey, you fill out an application, it goes into this black hole, these companies, and, and no one notices your resume or your application. And how do you kind of fight back against that? It sounds like we're just going with that.
Well, you need to get to know, you need to really get to know a recruiter and know your recruiters and work with more than one. But I think that if you form a relationship with someone, and you're genuine, that's, I mean, for me, that's, I don't forget people. So I don't know. I mean, I guess you just need to be, again, it comes back to being authentic, to being genuine, and if somebody's not spending the time to talk to you at all, don't waste your time with them. Move on, find the next person.
I agree. It's kind of a combination. I think particularly what I've seen over the last bunch of months during the pandemic, it's just so hard for people to get noticed.
I know.
So that whether it's a recruiter or, you kind of do that 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon separation to find out who do you know who knows someone who knows somebody at that company, so that you can have someone champion your cause. Because I think if you're just sending resumes in and that's it and hoping for the best, could it work? Yeah, but it's hard. The odds are against you. But if you
Yeah, they are.
right, if you have someone like Claire, right, who and you're in the real estate industry and other industries you specialize in, hey, she can knock down doors to try to find something for you. If, let's say, she can't help you because it's a different industry, well, maybe you want to find who do you know at that company that you want to work for, find a human being, and please, hey, can you get my resume in front of this hiring manager? I'm perfect for this job. Can you help me out? Can you say a good word for me? Because I think the human touch is not going to go away. And I guess this is maybe.
I hope not.
Right? I think you know what? It's now more than ever. I see that you need that human touch to get past all this technology, and that's I don't know if that's where he's coming or she's coming from with that, but it does feel that way. That you sit there on your computer, you're sending out apps, you're sending out resumes, you don't know what happens, and it's just so frustrating. If you have a human being, if you have a recruiter who could go fight for you, or somebody who works at the company, someone who knows someone who works at the company, that makes all the difference. Because then you have, it's so different when you can have a recruiter saying, "Hey, Jane is really awesome. I've had online interviews with her. Here's why she's so great for the job. Here's what she's done. Here's a little anecdote about her that really made her stand out to me." And then if you're a hiring manager, wow, I have 10 resumes sitting here, but like they're just pieces of paper. But now I know all about Jane. I'm like,
Right.
wow,
Right.
she's a multifaceted. I got a lot of color and texture on her. Yeah, let's talk to her. The same thing, even if not a recruiter, you get somebody who can do that for you at the company, and they'd be like, okay, hey, if Jack is really recommending this person as a non-recruiter, just regular Jack guy,
Yep.
hey, maybe you should take a look at Claire, see her background. Here's why I think she's great. And you have a stack of resumes, and you don't want to go through each one of them. You're like, all right, yeah, I'll talk to Claire. So I think the thing is finding a human, finding a recruiter or a human
That's right.
who can
That's
really
right.
advocate for you, pull some strings for you, cajole for you, twist some arms for you. And I'm not saying that lightly. You kind of have to do that in this market. You really have. It's really tough.
It is, and you've done so much to really try and help others that are out there struggling right now, and I love that about you, and I've loved being involved in that. It shows how much you care, and I think a lot of people really appreciate that about you, Jack.
Nice.
But one of the things that I do is when I'll get a great person, a great candidate that I just don't have a job for right now, or that our company doesn't have a job for right now, that I know is going to be a good, would be a great candidate in the future. Or every once in a while we'll get, like I said, we'll get a client that says, you know what, I'm just looking for these three types of these three things in a person. I don't care where they come from. That happens every once in a while. Not all the time, but I will tell people, look, I'll get to know them. I'll get all of their information in the system so that everybody in the company can easily pull them up when they, by keyword search. But I'll tell them, I'll say, hey, look, if you see a job posting out there that, falls anywhere within any of our verticals, and before you shoot your resume off into who knows where, and there's an intern that is just out of college and has been told to, look for these three words. And if you find these three words on the resume, then put it in this pile. If not, put it on this pile. And they're going through 5,000 resumes. They have no idea what they're looking at. I'm like, once you send it out, can't help you. But if you take 2 seconds to call me and ask me if our company has any relationships with XYZ company that has this job you're talking about, then I can give you a warm introduction and we can skip that whole where'd my resume go and I never heard back from anybody.
Yeah.
Because we can go straight to the hiring manager typically at that point.
It's such a difference, right? When you have that.
Absolutely.
I had a question about this too. Do you think it's better to use a recruiter because they're better at negotiating salaries than when somebody does it themselves? Have you seen that? Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah. Well, what's nice about that is that it keeps, you can be, the recruiter can be the middleman, right? The recruiter can keep everything nice and sweet between the candidate and the client. So that, if the candidate has a question they're not really comfortable asking the client, about, or the client has a question they're not really comfortable asking the candidate, well, it's a lot easier for me to do it because I have a different relationship with the candidate and I have a different relationship with the client than they have with each other. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's always better to have somebody else negotiating that for you.
All right. What's it? I can't remember the exact expression when you say like a lawyer is a fool if he represents himself. I'm completely butchering it, but that kind of thing is that because if you're doing it yourself, you just have all the emotions, right? You have all the stuff that you're dealing with.
It's too close.
It's too close to home. It's hard to keep your cool because like I've seen that too, where you'll hear from people where they'll make an offer and they feel, how dare you make that offer? I should have more. And then they get angry and the other party's like, well, it's a negotiation. Why are you getting mad at me? Yeah. And it just unravels because it's hard to separate yourself from it. So I guess if you have a recruiter who steps in, who could be dispassionate about it and could kind of be that middle person.
Right. And the recruiter really knows the client and their needs and why X, Y, or Z. And the recruiter really knows the candidate and where they're coming from, or they should.
Yeah.
They should know both of those things.
Right, because then they can say, hey, you know what? They're not playing games. A lot of times you feel the company's playing games with it. They're trying to lowball. So then if you have that recruiter, it's like, yes, I work with this. Here's how they do. Because a lot of firms are different, right? Like some firms, you probably see this. We don't negotiate. I'll give our best offer first. That's it. Others, if they give an offer of 100, you really know they can go to 110. They're giving more. So you kind of know how they work. So you know like what to tell your candidate. All right, I think we could go to 110, but if we go 120, it's not going to work. But maybe we should go 115 because then maybe we can get it. But if not, we can go. I know we can get the 110. So you kind of know how they are. So
for sure. And I mean, some clients some clients absolutely want to put their best foot forward and want to make that person happy immediately.
Yes.
So that they're like, oh my gosh, yes, because everything else is wonderful and they love each other. And other clients, are expecting them to come back with a counteroffer.
Yes. I find that
because that's how they are.
I find that most of the latter, that they expect them to come back and they don't do it right all up front. Because I find out this too. So let's say you give right up front of the great one. Then they start thinking, this was too easy. Is something wrong? Or maybe I didn't negotiate hard enough. And then they come back and want more. And the company's like, we gave you a great offer, right? What are you doing? So sometimes having a recruiter in between can explain it. Hey, listen, Claire, they gave you a great offer. They just didn't want to go back and forth and negotiate. You're not leaving anything on the table. So you have that in-between person to smooth these rough edges out.
And it's easy, and it's when you've worked with, you say, hey, look, I've worked with this client for 10, 15, 18 years. I know I know their process. I know who they are. I've spent time, I've spent so much time with them, so much face-to-face time with them. And I know them personally. I know their personalities, their quirks, and what they believe and what's in their heart. Right. And some clients, that well. And some you don't, but I really try to really be an extension of my client companies to really understand their culture and where they're coming from. I think that makes a big difference. I really try to spend time with them, as many long-term clients, which most of mine are. So
because that's the value add that you bring to the table, because by doing that, you really know who they are, what they're about, what they like, what they don't like, who can work, who won't work there. what kind of culture fit, how much money you can get, what kind of future, what kind of growth. And you can't get that from a job description. Just not,
No,
you can't, but you
no,
get someone who's, placed the person who's a roofer who's now the big muckety muck over there. So like,
right.
it really makes a world of a difference. I have one last question that we have here too, because believe it or not, that's been an hour already. That
I
went
can't believe it.
crazy. Uh, would you recommend, is this okay if people use more than one recruiter when they're searching?
Yes. I think they should if they're especially if they're unemployed. I think they should. I definitely think they should. Um,
Yeah.
do I think they should use like 20? Probably not. If they're employed and a recruiter and it's just one position, then no. But if they're actively, and that's probably who's listening to us right now, people that are actively looking because of COVID, they got laid off, or one of those types of situations. Absolutely. There's people all over the country that do different things and work different ways, and you should be in front of all of them when you're in that situation. I mean, you've got to take care of your family.
Now, do you have it, just curious, where in your kind of area, when a company gives out a job, do they just give it to one or two recruiters, and they just give it to like a ton?
Well, not my clients don't typically do that. I mean, I mostly do retained search.
Mm-hmm.
Not a third and a third and a third. I don't like doing that much math. But
let me explain to people who are watching, so that this is a great point. And you know what? We should have brought this up before. So that when you're dealing with recruiters, they're very different types, and it makes a big difference. So what Claire is saying, she works on retained searches. And what that means is that it's a retained search. A company is going out to her and her company and saying, hey, you have an exclusive. You have this. You're the only recruiting company that's working on it. So that when they contact you, they have that exclusivity.
right.
When you have contingency, and most recruiters, I do most of the work in contingency.
Do you?
It's like a dog eat dog world. It's a really disgusting, dirty business, because what
Yeah.
happens is this: you have a company that says, hey, Jack, we want to give you guys, here's this job, and you're all excited. And then you go, okay, we're going to get on a call and go over more detail with the hiring manager. You get on the call, and there's like 20, and I'm not exaggerating, there'd be 10 other recruiting firms on there. And with those 10 other recruiting firms, there might be 3 or 4 or 5 people in each firm's, working on it. So now you have between 20 and 30 recruiters who are working on the same job, plus the company's internal recruiters are recruiting, and they post it on LinkedIn, they post it on Zip, they post it on wherever.
Yeah.
So you're battling everything.
That's tough.
So and that's why it could be frustrating for job seekers. If you're not aware of how that is, then you're like, why did I get a call from 5 different recruiters for it? Is there something wrong with this job?
Right. And you know what? And Jack, I don't know if Wall Street, if it's just normal for Wall Street to work that way in terms of having 10 to 20 different recruiters. But what I always tell clients is, the reason I like to work that way, and it's not that I always did, but I mean, I obviously grew into it. I mean, I think our firm is probably 90% retained. Newer people coming in probably have more contingency than retained searches. But I'll tell the client, look, it doesn't make you look good when you've got 5, 10, 15 different people, recruiters calling the same person. That individual that is then going, what is wrong with this company that they can't fill this job?
Exactly.
And I tell my clients that, but or potential clients that, but before we sign anything, I'm like, look, if I'm gonna do all this work and do all this legwork for you, I need you to put some skin in the game, and it's not like I'm gonna do anything with it. It's gonna sit in escrow till I close the deal, and I'm gonna close the deal, but it just shows their commitment to processing the people that you've taken the time, the 100 people that you went through before you got that first one that you knew was the perfect fit for them.
Yeah, it's so bizarre how that is. And a typical thing, but it could be like this. You go on those conference calls and you dial in, And then you hear, hey, it's Jack Kelly from Compliance Search. Hey, it's here. It's here. And you're like, it keeps going on. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, why would I want my team to like spend a lot of time working on this when there's like so many other people working on it? And then for job seekers, as you pointed out, if you get calls for once, twice, you see the job pop up everywhere. You start thinking, it's like anything else. If it's all over the place, how valuable is it? If it's everywhere, then you're like, no,
Right.
it could be a great job, but it seems devalued in the eyes of people because it's all over the place. But then what happens too, the recruiters, you get really cutthroat because you want to find that person first because it's a race to find who can get it first and submit it first. So then there might be some unethical recruiters who maybe cross the line and will send the resume without asking the person because they know you got all these other people breathing down your neck. So you want to just get it in there. Or maybe they get maybe I'm interested, but they send it anyway. It just creates ill will. And then I think it also devalues the company themselves. It's like, why are you doing this? It doesn't look good for the brand.
It devalues the company,
Yeah.
the client company, and it gives recruiters a bad name. When you've got search firms out there that are just throwing paper to see what sticks.
And you know what?
And half the people don't even know they've been submitted. I'm like, how can you do that to somebody?
And you want to say, hey, don't do that. But part of me is like, hey, I understand why you do it because the way it's set up, it kind of forces people to say, like, what am I supposed to do? Even though it's wrong, I could see how this plays out because they're like, well, Claire did seem she was kind of interested. And if I don't send her, someone else is going to send her. So I should probably send her. It just creates a bad environment for it.
Yeah. I just personally I just have never sent someone that didn't know they were being sent. And, I wasn't sure that, or I didn't really feel in my heart that they were a fit for my client.
See, that's why if this would be helpful for people to know. So if you are dealing with like Claire, who does retained search, it's going to be a whole different experience. Whereas if you're speaking to recruiters who do contingency, and they're great, awesome, fantastic recruiters who do contingency who are very successful, but due to the way it's set up, it's the game. You know what I mean? It's like the way it's set up is then they're competing with so many other people. If you're good for the job, they're going to show you the love, and then also maybe pressure you a lot because they feel, hey, I got so much other competition. I got to make this placement.
Right.
Conversely, if you don't have the experience, they're going to probably give you a quick brush off because they're thinking, I can't spend too much time because if I don't stay on this job, my competition is going to get it placed and not me. So I can't spend time talking to you. And because they don't just have one job that's like this, they may have 10 jobs where they're competing against, in each one they're competing against.
Or 20 or 30.
Yeah. So it becomes a really, like I said, a dog eat dog kind of environment.
Yeah.
So your job seekers, maybe that also sheds a little light, and this is what goes on behind the scenes. So you can kind of think, oh, that's why I got the brush off because I'm not.
Maybe that person wasn't really that big of a jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're just like, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna be able to help you, and I spend a lot of time. I'm gonna lose the race to get the right person, or I'm getting a lot of pressure because they know if they place me, they're gonna get paid, and so they're putting the heat on me. So it's one of these things that it does lead to a lot of resentment. That's why I thought it'd be good to talk about this because it fleshes these things out, so people feel like, oh, I get it now. I understand, and when people understand it, then it empowers you because now you know. So if you get a sense where a recruiter's brushing you off, you could say, hey, Jack, are you brushing me up because like I really don't have the background, you don't have the jobs for it? Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah, ask the question.
Okay, right.
Ask the question.
Like, oh,
but
okay,
yeah.
And it's like, are you pressuring me because you don't have anyone else with a job and I'm your best bet and you want me to take it? Well, yeah. All right. Okay. Now, so they understand this is what's happening and why they're in this situation. So, anything I didn't ask you, Claire? Any other last things that you'd like to share, from your perspective?
I would just, I know that a lot of people that are out, we're very busy. I know that a lot of people that are outside of our industries right now are hurting. I know that the world is a scary place right now, and I just want to say, don't ever give up. Try to when you're feeling down, go do something else. Go do something. Don't watch the news. Go do something else that will put your mind in a completely different place. Go do something you love, and just keep going, because this too shall pass.
That's great advice. It really is. Turn off the TV, put down the phone, decompress, all that kind of stuff. Hey, last question. So how's Texas?
Texas is great. It's cold where I am right now. It's in it was in the 20s all night long. So we've got the frozen lake out there. Not frozen full all the way, but all the way around the edges.
Are things open there? Like, can you go into restaurants and
yep,
bars and stuff? Or
yep, I think in the bigger cities, where I live, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, but I think in Houston, I think I'd have to ask. I think they're like at 50% capacity. I think there's probably outdoor dining too. Here, it's supposed to be 50% capacity at the closest town to us, which is population 2,000, but it's like 12 miles away. But it's a small town, and we have sheriffs more than we have one. I think there's one police officer, and then the rest is the sheriff's department, right? And they're not going to really go in there and write somebody a ticket, because they don't want all the businesses to close. I mean, it's a little town,
What
so
about
it's
the big
different.
towns like Austin, Houston? How's it over there?
I don't, I haven't been to Austin. Austin is a kind of an anomaly in Texas, I think. Austin is probably as California as you can get for Texas. I know in Dallas, everything's at 50% capacity where you can eat outside. My daughter lives in Dallas, and she's going out to eat all the time. So.
Except for the 20 degrees, that's an aberration, right? It's not usually that cold, or is it?
No, in the winter it snows here where I am. I'm up in the hills, so.
Because here in the Northeast,
we have
right?
4 seasons.
Yeah, like here in the Northeast, like New York and New Jersey. Basically, I think in New York, I don't know where it stands now, but last I heard from Governor Cuomo that they're just restaurants, boom, closing all the restaurants. It's 25% capacity here in New Jersey.
I'm not going to comment on all that stuff, Jack. You know me.
It's really bizarre. It's like this is what I tell you, one of the things that I'm doing these LinkedIn lives and doing everything else, it's not much to do. Everything is kind of closed down.
And so many people have left. I mean, I've seen live cams of Times Square, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Like we said at the beginning of the conversation.
Where are the people?
So many businesses going down, and people going down to Florida from here, and just like in California, going to Texas. So it's.
I talked to a candidate the other day he was a candidate, then a client, then a candidate, then a client. No, he's a candidate again. But I was talking to him the other day, and he lives in Southeast Florida. And he's like, Claire, New Yorkers are knocking on the door. I mean, they're knocking on the door, and I can sell my house for 3 times what I paid for it right now.
Wow.
And then go over to the country club community a mile down the road and pay cash for a house, and then have 60% less overhead than I have now. And I'm like, well, what are you waiting for?
No state tax. State tax. So it's I can understand.
We don't have that in Texas either. No state tax here.
That's why they're going to these places. It's such a big difference. So, hey, for people to reach you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
You can reach me through LinkedIn under Claire Spence. You can reach me at Claire Spence at Joseph Chris, like the 2 first names, josephandchris.net, or on my phone number, which is 281-359-2127.
Excellent. Well, Claire, thanks. I think this was great. I'm glad you shared so much information. It's one of these things that I know, and you probably see this too, people just don't understand how this whole process works with recruiters. So hopefully this sheds a little light and at least gets you started, the wheels turning to, okay, this is how they operate, this is how they work. So then you can best use recruiters to help you, or understand when you deal with them, like what's going on behind the scenes. By knowing that, having that knowledge is power. So then you get to know what's going on, what's going to drive them, and to use that to your advantage. So hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks a lot. And Claire, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jack.
Happy holidays.